Hello, friends. Good evening, wherever you are. It's 2 o'clock in the morning here in Israel. I'm glad to see many familiar and some new faces. Thank you, Taylor, for handling this for the first time. What a timing. I know there's a bunch of people in the waiting room with only their first name. We're going to message people in the waiting room to please put your full names to enter this room for the sake of safety. So, Taylor, thank you for handling that, and apologies for any inconvenience. So I know that many of you were not planning to spend your Monday evening here with me, but thank you for being here. As some of you may know, I'm Amichai, founding rabbi and co-leader at Lab Shul, and I flew to Israel yesterday. I arrived here today. I'm in Jerusalem, and this evening was planned a long time ago as a series of 7 sessions focusing on symbols that we inherited as a Jewish people and that have meaning to our spiritual lives and to our individual and collective well-being. When where we are now started happening, we decided to make tonight open for everybody as a session that looks at one of those symbols, the first one planned for tonight, as a way for us to come together to focus on what other ways we can have agency, find resilience, be protected, explore protection in ways that are both spiritual and intellectual, emotional, meaningful from our tradition and helpful right now. So this is where I'm coming to you with. And I don't know all of you, but I can only imagine that we're all holding very different emotions at this point that are on a range spectrum of some of the worst ones in our human archive and sometimes conflicting. Those include mourning and grief, devastation and rage. Right now, it's relatively quiet here in Jerusalem. Been another sleepless night. It's sleepless in Gaza. It's sleepless in Israel. We're in the middle of a war. Right or wrong doesn't really cut what's going on here. The carnage is real and devastating. The primal tribal desire for either or, me, you, victim, victimizer, is very powerful right now on all sides. Tonight, we will not be discussing the political dimensions of what's going on right now. This is not the space for that. There will be other spaces. Tonight, we're going to be learning together. We're going to be looking at some of our history and some of our mystery and find ways to build sanctuary in our hearts and our homes with each other so we can face whatever comes with better sense of being. This is our prayer for peace, for healing, for some sense in the senseless. On Wednesday night, our community, this coming Wednesday, is going to hold another Zoom ritual, an opportunity to share, to hear, to talk, and there will be others coming up. But tonight we're here to delve into the secrets of the threshold. How do we keep ourselves safe? The more of you who just joined us, thank you. I'm glad that people are putting in the chat where you're from. That's really meaningful and helpful. And in just a couple moments, I'm going to ask you to maybe come with one word that feels good to you as a word with which to begin this evening's gathering. What's a word with which you want to grace this threshold that we're starting together? Why don't you take a breath with me? Feel your feet on the ground, if you're able to. Close your eyes for just a moment. and think of a word, a blessing that you are bringing to the circle, a single word that you feel like putting in the chat. Thank you, Adina, for compassion. Keep them coming. Let's create a little string of blessing words for our threshold. Hope, community, loving kindness, care, tenderness, fear, gratitude, prayer, unity, light. Keep them coming. I keep talking about tools because when the light goes out, you don't feel like starting to look for the flashlight. You got to know what the flashlight is. And so we have a toolkit in our heart and on our bookshelf that helps us turn on the light when it is dark. Some of those tools are reserved for special occasions, such as the prayer for the kidnapped. That is a prayer in our prayer book, and it's been there for 1,500 years. It's been used when needed. Now it's being used again. There's the mourner's Kaddish that comes out when you're in mourning. There's the healing prayer. And there are amulets, such as the mezuzah that we will talk about tonight. That's always there, but maybe tonight can use some extra love and extra attention to unpack what this blessing of the threshold is all about, as your words fill our mezuzah tonight. Equanimity and curiosity, quality of perseverance, paths. Dear friends coming from all over, openness and comfort, love and pause, presence, ever presence, serenity and fortitude. So while more are joining us, I'm so honored that you're all here this evening, tonight, with me, with us. It means a lot. I'm not going to get too personal right now. Maybe that's going to happen later. I want to start with a poem as another way to bless our threshold. And then we're going to start looking at some texts together. This is a poem by Zelda, a poet who lived in Jerusalem, and she was quite beloved. I'll read it in Hebrew. It's very short and then in English. כל הלילה בכיתי, ריבונו של עולם. אולי יש מוות שאין בו אלימות, מוות שדומה לפרח. כל הלילה הפלתי תחנוני, אפילו אני עפר, יהיה בי מנוחה. All night I cried, Master of the world, perhaps there is a death that holds no terror, a death that is like a flower. All night I spilled my pleas, although I am dust, let there be within me tranquility. So with this poem of Zelda, poem for tranquility, I thank you again for being here, bringing your words of comfort into our collective threshold, and for using this time to ground our pained souls in what I hope will be helpful protection in some way to our bodies and to our souls. And I know that there's a lot of us here, and people come from different backgrounds and different levels of knowledge, Jewish, all of the above, wherever you stand politically, wherever you stand theologically. I'm going to be exploring some Jewish sources in Hebrew and English that span thousands of years, that point at an object that some of you might have on your doorpost right now, and some of you might not. But it is called a mezuzah. And the workshop that I created, this is the second reiteration, called 7 Secrets, once upon a time, a few years ago, during COVID, is looking at 7 Jewish objects, symbols, heirlooms that teach us about how to live life and that are aesthetic and meaningful in some ways that we don't always pay attention to. But objects, as we know, have a great deal of meaning. In Yiddish, we call them tchotchkes. They can be bric-a-brac that get stuck in your way. We can be hoarding a lot of old ones from previous generations. There could be ones we create and hallow, but they are objects that are the 3D containers of deep messaging that sometimes it's good to retrieve. That's what we're doing tonight. I'm sharing on my screen our study sheet. And in moments of full transparency, since we kind of ran very fast with this, not just for those of you who registered and paid for the whole class, but everyone who's coming here, so welcome for free. I don't know if we were able to email you the PDF of this session. So Sarah, I know you're on. I'm not sure. I mean, I have the PDF that I emailed. Is there a way for us to share the PDF in the chat for folks to open? Perhaps not.
I can give it a shot. Yeah, I can try and turn it into a shareable link. Give me a few minutes.
Thank you. That's awesome. Meanwhile, I will start. So it's now 6:15 New York time, 7:15 New York time, 2:15 a.m. Israel time. Don't worry, no one's sleeping anyway. And we're going to do some stuff together for the next half hour. I want to walk you through some of this history. And then I'm going to invite you to breakout rooms for about 20 minutes in groups of 4 or 5 to share some of where this text is taking you. The idea is not for us to be engaged in text, for these texts to engage us, whatever we need tonight. Keep breathing, keep hydrating. Here we go. I'm going to fast forward through this document. We'll come back at the beginning in a moment. And I'm starting with from the back door. What is a mezuzah as well? This is from Vanessa Oakes, who's a wonderful Jewish scholar, teacher, ritualist, an academic, who writes the following. A former student, a Jewish soldier in the U.S. Marines, always wears a silver mezuzah on a chain around his neck. It is for him a symbol of his commitment to Judaism, one that comes before all his other commitments. The mezuzah he describes as very holy is not even a mezuzah according to Jewish law, as it lacks the necessary parchment with God's name written on it. Even if it did have the proper parchment inside according to Jewish law, it would be meaningless, curious, or even offensive when hung around someone's neck as jewelry and not placed on a doorpost where Jewish law says it belongs. For this soldier, however, the mezuzah he wears is holy, even if it is but a silver miniature of an empty mezuzah case. He has vowed that he will never take it off. So strong is his belief, and so strong is its pull on him. He says, I live with it on, and I will die with it on. So the mezuzah is a piece of parchment. Here you're seeing one. We'll come back and look at it in a moment. This is from the 11th century. When it's a little less old and has a lot of other glosses on it, it looks like this. And it's put inside a case, and it's on your door. So where should we begin? You want to begin with a pagan, mythic past? Or shall we begin with Jewish law? Let's begin with Blue Greenberg. Okay. Blue Greenberg is a contemporary teacher and writer. She's one of the leaders of the feminist Orthodox movement and a very thoughtful teacher about how to take tradition and not only feminize it, but internalize what it has to tell us. These are her words about the mezuzah. And I'm going to invite us for a moment to share what are your thoughts or stories about the meaning of mezuzah to you. What's a mezuzah? Lou Greenberg says it is a Jewish household is created by the people who live in it, who are sometimes not all Jews, by the way they act, the things they do and don't do, the beliefs they hold. A mezuzah serves two functions. Every time you enter or leave, the mezuzah reminds you that you have a covenant with God. Second, the mezuzah serves as a symbol for everyone else that this particular dwelling is constituted as a Jewish household, operating by a special set of rules, rituals, and beliefs. Here's two questions that Blue includes here that we're not necessarily going to talk about, but I invite you to think about. What do you think makes your home, or anyone's home, a Jewish home? What rules, rituals, beliefs do you hold most dear? I'm going to let these questions echo here for a moment. Thank you. There's the link. Thank you, Sarah, so much. The link to the study sheet is now in the chat for you all to open as well. And everybody who registered for tonight will be emailed both the study sheet and the invitation for the upcoming sessions. And so let's talk about mezuzah for a moment, right? Many of you have one. I'm seeing some faces here whom I helped put one on your doorstep. Some of us may have created ones. Some of us may have bought ones. Some of us may have kissed ones as you walk in. There's lots of different traditions about it. What Blue Greenberg is not telling us is that in addition to it being a way for having a covenant with God, whatever that means to you, Labshul is God optional, meaning whatever mystery feels like to you, name it. That's one of the purposes of the mezuzah. It's a religious object, an iconic relic from our past. It also signifies the house of Jewish, is Jewish. And I am asking this question with sadness, but I know that there were moments in our history, and those moments might be happening right now, where it doesn't feel safe to have a mezuzah on your door. I remember when I first moved into where I live now, in New York City, a big apartment building. I did not know the neighbors. And I thought, is it safe to have a mezuzah on my door in New York City in the 21st century? It is. I got a really big one. It's there, piece of art. But I'm asking this question tonight because safety is on our minds. Our inner safety, our spiritual safety, our physical safety. In a world that prefers a lot of binary over understanding complexity. And having a big mezuzah on the door is not always the safest move. Jill is writing in the chat, my mother always said she was too scared to have one. Thank you for sharing that, Jill. So before we move further, just to get on the same page, again, some of us have familiarity with what the mezuzah is. You have them on your doors. You experience their history. For some of you, it's a whole new concept, the one you haven't spent a lot of time thinking about. I'm going to invite 2 to 4 of us, maybe 5, to share. If you've got a particular memory that you want to share with us about a mezuzah, maybe a childhood memory or grown-up memory, a story that makes the mezuzah, that object on our doorpost, meaningful to you. Before we go down the rabbit hole to start exploring where this crazy idea came from. Who came up with the idea of putting an object on our door that says, A, you're Jewish, B, here's some text to protect your door, C, a bunch of other weird traditions that go with it, right? Like, where did this come from? So if you have something to share with us, and I'm going to ask you to be brief, we would love to hear from you. And we're going to ask you to raise your hand. I see the Friedmans. You've raised your hand, so please unmute.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, friends.
I have a very vivid memory of being a little boy going with my dad to visit my grandma and grandpa in the Bronx, and my dad would always lift me up to the mezuzah, and I would kiss it, and then be greeted by my grandma, who would pick me up and give me a big hug. So it was always a very positive association, and I've been kissing mezuzot all my life.
That's so sweet. I love that you're equating the mezuzah with your grandma's hug and with a sense of welcome and security and safety. And you are, I know there's Joyce on the Zoom.
I'm Lev.
Who just spoke?
Rabbi Lev Friedman.
Hi, Lev. Hi, Rabbi Lev. Thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate your wisdom and memory. Toda. What else? I see Andrea and Gary have something to share with us about mezuzah. Please unmute.
So when we were coming home with our daughter, who we adopted from Guatemala, Guatemala is known for jade. And so we found a beautiful jade and silver mezuzah, which we wanted to bring home so that it would be a merging of cultures and traditions. And so when we were going through the airport, the points must have looked like a weapon. And so they asked us, it was a very young gentleman guard, asked us to please unwrap it, which we did. And of course, he had never seen anything like, not of course, but he had never seen anything like it. And in my broken Spanish, I explained, and it was very moving because he understood the holiness of it and was so gentle with the way he helped us rewrap it and put away. It touched him, and it made it all the more special for us. Thank you.
What a beautiful story, Andrea. Thank you for sharing your kindness and how you brought a life into your home. And this, you're describing the story of the threshold, right? What's the airport? It's a threshold. And the mezuzah is there to grace threshold. So this mezuzah graced the threshold of so many new beginnings. Thank you for that beautiful story. Harry, my dear friend, good to see you. Please unmute.
I've been a real estate, among other things, I've been a real estate manager most of my life, taking care of many buildings. And when people move out, and sometimes they may leave a mezuzah, still on the door. And we made it a company policy to remove them so that they could possibly be reused, and then they would be disposed of properly. You can't just throw something like that in the trash. So we have a collection of mezuzot, and I guess if you want one, just let me know.
I do, actually, Harry. Let's talk about it. I have an idea for an art installation. So
Okay.
let's talk.
Okay.
Thank you so much. What a lovely way to share this. Really appreciate you so much. Be healthy, Harry. I see Diana. Would love to hear from you, Diana. And I just want to say there's also a comment from Robert in the chat. It is an act of trust in your neighbors to have a mezuzah. Yes. Amen. So Diana, and then we're going to continue. We'll have more time to share in a moment. And again, just as we're talking about this, remember, we're using this theme of the mezuzah of this turbulent night to explore a sense of safety, to talk about what does it mean to feel safe in the world. A question that is never simple. And I will just say, I've been in Israel for less than 12 hours, and that is the question that is rattling everybody's soul. What does it mean to feel safe? What will it mean to feel safe again in our homes, in our bodies? Diana, did we lose you?
Yes.
Yes, there you are, please.
When my parents married in 1958, they moved into an apartment building in Chicago, and a Jewish doorman whispered to my mother that they were the first Jews that had ever been allowed to move into the building. My memory of a mezuzah is when I was still very small, and I think I started noticing it My family never kissed the mezuzah, never paid it much attention, but it was always there on the doorpost. I find myself wondering whether it was left there and whether it still might be there if I were to go back to that building and look. But it was always sort of an object of fascination to me to see this. And, as I got older, I would ask what it was and why was it there and such. But slowly became aware of why it was there. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, so much. So I'm going to hold off on questions and answers just for a moment to take us a little bit further down in history. I don't know about you all, but those of you who've studied with me know that I like my footnotes and I like going down rabbit holes of where did we come from and how do things become the way they become, sometimes officially and sometimes unofficially. History is giving us these invitations into who we are through very often the aesthetics and the stories of our past. So here's the mezuzah. This is your basic Jewish encyclopedia entry. And the sheen, this image on the left is the Hebrew letter sheen with a particular crown, as you can see. And we'll get more to this particular image, this letter, this crown in a moment. But just so we're all on the same page, I don't want to assume literacy here. The word mezuzah literally in Hebrew means doorpost. That kind of shape that holds up a door. The name given to a rectangular piece of parchment inscribed with the scriptural passages from the Torah, the Bible, Deuteronomy, written in 22 lines, according to the same rules as those for the Torah and Tefillin, phylacteries, meaning the scribe needs to write them in a particular calligraphy. The parchment is rolled up and inserted in any kind of case. This case is affixed in a slanting position, more about the slant in a moment, to the the upper part of the right-hand doorpost, so that the upper part is inward and the lower part outward, and about a handbreadth from the outer edge of the doorpost. Very specific. Why? You'll see. On the outer side of the top of the parchment is inscribed one of the names of God, Shaddai, beginning with this sheen, this letter you're looking at, a very mysterious name that harkens back to the understanding of the divine as the feminine, as the mother. So this is a pre-patriarchy. This is pretty damn old. The material on which the mezuzah may be written is as carefully prescribed as it is for the scroll of the law. It's a parchment. So the text itself has meaning, the medium and the message has meaning, the case is aesthetic, but obviously has meaning, and every little piece about this mezuzah thing has some kind of meaning. Now, where does this begin? Here's one possible mythic beginning. My friend Michael was just chatting, sending me a message about this notion of the blood on the door. So you remember Passover, right? Here's a story from the Torah about the night we became a nation out of the enslavement, the Exodus. And we were told, the Hebrews were told to create a ritual on their doorposts. In the Hebrew, we use the word mezuzot right in the Torah. This is the instruction for this full moon ahead of the night. They shall take some of the blood of the lamb that they slaughtered, put it on the two doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they are to eat this roasted lamb. And Adonai, the Hebrew God, will pass over, and will smite the Egyptians. And when Adonai sees the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, Adonai will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And the blood of the houses where you are staying shall be a sign for you. So let's just pause here for a moment. Again, this particular moment on this night, everything has resonance. The destroyer, the war, us, and them. So much in our reality is imbued by the mythology, by the symbology of where we come from. But in some way, the threshold is being honored here, being noticed here as a liminal place between me and you, between life and death, between safety and unsafety, between who will live and who will die. The ones who stay inside this bloody doorway will be safe. The ones who do not have this marked doorway will not. This, on some level, is the primal beginning of what will one day be the mezuzah. And there are so many other haunting and problematic issues with this moment, with this story, with its violence, with the fact that we still remember it. And on Passover night, on some level, we relive this trauma and this tremendous moment of birth. There have been some powerful feminist readings of this moment as in the birth. This blood on the lintel is literally the birth. People are pushed through. I'm going to ask you folks to stay muted if you can. If you don't mind, it's just going to make it easier for now. Thank you. I'll unmute in a bit. So I'm going to ask you to leave this image in your mind as we look at what's inside the mezuzah, right? At some point in our lives, in our Jewish lives, the story of the Exodus happens. And then later on, the Torah, we get this text that you're looking at right now. This is an actual version of what's inside a mezuzah near you, both front and back. The front, the side on the left, has these texts we're going to look at in a moment from Deuteronomy, including the Shema, the big Jewish mantra, the bumper sticker that many of us know by heart, that we say several times a day if you're pious. And we might be saying it as the very last thing before we die. And it's a prayer that we recite in public proclamations. On the right, you have some weird mystical stuff, which makes this not just a text, but also an amulet, meaning it's about the textual content matters, but this is also spiritual, mystical, almost occult in some way, which makes this an amulet, an object of powerful presence on some level or not. I want to read with you this text, the first paragraph of what's in the mezuzah, because you'll understand where this instruction comes from. So, honestly, we can chant this by heart. And if you know this by heart, and many of us do, chant along with me. I mean, this is the bedtime Shema, basically. And I don't know when was the last time I was up with 100 people online at 2 a.m. my time. So this is as good as bedtime Shema as it goes. My mom almost wanted to join tonight, but I'm like, 2 a.m. You should sleep. You can watch the recording tomorrow. So here's the Shema. This is not the Labshul translation. You know, ours is very God optional and poetic. This is Jewish Publication Society, old school. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen up, all you who wrestle. The divine is one. The divine is connected. Now follow the English. I'm going to chant the Hebrew. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקרשתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. So I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you know this by heart. I'm seeing a lot of lips moving. Somehow, this is one of the few paragraphs that Jews all over the world know by heart. It was indoctrinated as a things you know by heart. I mean, I see the room here has a variety of ages, but you know, like reciting poetry by heart used to be a thing, maybe before Instagram. But now we just copy paste. But this is a poem that we have taught to know by heart, and many of us do. And this is not just a poem. This is the quintessential Jewish manual for how to live a Jewish life. This is the little instructional manual. You know how you buy some kind of a gizmo? Like I have this complicated alarm clock back in New York. I can't understand 80% of how to use it. You can barely even use it as an alarm clock. There's a little booklet that comes with it. So I keep the booklet in my bedside drawer. I don't think I've ever read it, but it's there for when I'll somehow figure out the third alarm gizmo thingy. It's sitting there unused. So in some way, this is a user manual booklet. It's a little thing of how to use tradition to serve your life. So here's what it says. And I think really on this, at this threshold moment in history, on this night, come back to the Ve'ahavta feels right. You shall love, Ve'ahavta, love and relove whatever God means to you with all your heart, soul, and might, with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your body. Love all. We believe that the divine is everything because we're in divine image. It just means lean into love. Now take to heart these instructions that you get today. Teach them to your children. Make sure we know them by heart. Here we are. When you're home and when you're on the road, when you go to sleep, when you get up in the morning. That's why the Shema is part of the liturgy for morning and evening, for bedtime. Bind them as a sign on your hand. That's those leather phylacteries, tefillin, public prayers. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead, on your third eye. And here's where the mezuzah comes from. Inscribe them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Write these words, ve'ahavta, love, on your doorways. This, as far as we know, is the beginning of the mezuzah. Everything, the stories you all shared, the ones we know about, comes from here. This is our physical reminder to always lean into love. Let's just take that in for a moment. What does it mean for us? And again, I know that we come from very different paths here, whatever being here means to you. Whether Jewish is something you were born into or chose, whether it's something that you are exploring or conflicted with, whether it's a blessing and or a challenge, not just tonight, but in your life. Isn't it amazing that this little piece of text, this instruction manual that is about love and about your body and your home, is sitting inside this little box on your doorway as this constant reminder that most of us forget. I was in Spain earlier this summer, and I went to a little city called Gerona, about an hour north of Barcelona, where there used to be a Jewish community for 800 years until the deportation in 1492. And the old barrio, the old quarter where the Jews used to live, still there, heavily touristy. And there's a couple of doorways that you can see the crevice in the wall, in the threshold, in the doorway, where there used to be a mezuzah. There's a museum and there's stuff, but none of that grabbed me. Just like looking at this 800-year-old little vacancy that somebody carved and somebody kissed for the last time before leaving home as a refugee. I'm thinking about refugees tonight, about people losing their homes. I spent a couple hours this afternoon helping people displaced from the south, from the city of Sderot, from several of the kibbutzim, being housed in people's homes or in hotels, left their home without anything. The drive to get people what they need here by the civic society in Israel, by volunteers, is unbelievable. And I'm thinking about the many, 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 many Palestinians who are homeless tonight and who will never see their home again. In the middle of this bloody, bloody, vicious war of survival. I'm not going to get political. I will just say, we who are taught to love can love sorrow as we love our people and as we love everything and everyone that is in the image of God. So the mezuzah invites me to lean into love in a deeper way. To think about safety that I don't want to take for granted. Think about the mezuzah as an invitation to think about what are the ways in which I make my world more safe? What are the ways in which I make my life more rich with meaning? And how do I make so for other people too? I want to share one more text with you before I'll show you the text that I invite you to explore together in small groups in just a bit. Now, what I'm showing you here is the rest of the text that's in the mezuzah. So next time you look at the one on your door at the house or synagogue or home you will enter, that's what's in here. And what's interesting about this text, it's there because this too mentions the mezuzah. This is too a user manual, but it has to do with the conditional sense of theology that our ancestors bequeathed us. It's a complicated heirloom. It says, if, then. If you love me and worship me and work me, it's going to be good. If not, not. I question this on some level. I also know that when Mother Earth says to us, if you do the work to honor the earth will thrive. And if you don't, there's going to be these crazy fires and floods and lack of water and suffering. So we can understand conditional in this way. Not sure I'm on the wagon here of God's love is conditional, but that's for another conversation. But here's the text. If, vehaya im, if you will obey the commandments that I, God, give to you today, loving Adonai your God and serving God with all your heart and soul, then there will be rain for your land in the seasons. And then the early rain and the late, you will gather in your new grain and your wine and oil. You will provide, there will be grass in the fields for your cattle, and you shall eat your fill. Take care not to be lured away to serve other gods, to be distracted by fill in the blank, greed, fear, hatred, whatever idols and false gods beckon to us. For Adonai's anger will flare up against you, and God will shut up the skies. There will be no rain, and the ground will not yield produce, and you will perish from the good land that has been assigned to you. Therefore, to remember what it's like to love, to live in loving covenant with the divine, with your heritage. Therefore, remember these words on your very heart. Bind them in a sign on your hands, physically, somatically, not just as an idea. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Teach them to your children, reciting them when you stay at home, when you are on the road, when you go to sleep, when you get up. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, to the end that you and your children may endure in the land that you've been given, that your ancestors have been assigned, as long as there is heaven over earth. Think about this text tonight, when what is at the source and at the core of this terrible ongoing war is the land that can be shared. There is enough room, there is enough rain for all the grain to be raised and grown and shared in safety and serenity without this really ancient war. So that's what's in the mezuzah. What would it be like if every time you walk through the threshold, you'd remember that that's there? For those of you who joined me tonight, maybe for the first time, but those who've been studying with me for a while, and you know the peculiar path of our labshul ways, what does it mean to feel like that that's what's in the mezuzah, whether you've known that it's there or not? Is this new to anybody here, that that's what's inside there, that that's the subtext, the text and the subtext? I want to invite you, if this is new to you, if this is moving you in some meaningful way that you want to share with us, to take one more round of responses. How does it feel to you to hear these words, that that's what's in the mezuzah? What does it feel to you tonight in a new way? Especially if you have not yet shared tonight, and there are many of us. I apologize, we're not going to have time to hear everybody. I'd love to hear, either use the chat with a word or comment, and if anyone wants to share, what does it mean for you right now to hear these words? To know that they're on your doorway, possibly right now. Feel free to raise your hand, put comments in the chat. We'll take a moment here, digest this text. I'm seeing that it's comforting and grounded, a reminder to follow halakha, Jewish law. We can talk about that. I'm sad that the message of love is coming from punishing interpretation of the divine. That's a good point, Lauren, but maybe we can interrogate that a little bit. Yeah, Jill is saying, a little disappointing, the quid pro punishing type of God always rubs me the wrong way. Yep. And she's saying, I want to write this in Hebrew and have a new relationship with my mezuzah. Beautiful. And Marilyn is saying, I knew the words by rote, but never with such meaning. Beautiful. If I substitute connection and oneness for God's, I dig that part. Yeah. And Brian, hey Brian, as somebody that's coming to the tribe, it suspends me in the reimagining my home. It's beautiful. Welcome home, Brian. Glad to have you. It's a call to action. Liana says it's on me. And Roxanne wants to share, so we'll call on Roxanne in a moment. Joyce is saying the Vehaya Im Shamua is about karma. Interesting. So the conditional thing that some of us are like, the if then pro quo is about karma in some way. So karma, the Hindu concept of consequences. Right? I do believe, and this is where I take a step away from some of the traditional theology, that the divine love is unconditional. The rain is going to come if I'm a good person or not. Mother Earth rains or doesn't It isn't personal. I heard a mother this morning who lost 2 children last Saturday in this massacre. Says, where is God? How could God make this happen? And it's a question I heard in the cancer ward in New York City just a couple of months ago. In my theology, God doesn't work that way. We show up with kindness. That's where the divine is. Droughts or wars, cancer, accidents. I don't believe in that kind of retribution or if then, quid pro quo. But perhaps we need to read this passage in Torah, not through this punishing God, but saying consequences. What does it mean to walk your talk, to lead a life of honesty and kindness, of dealing with our urges and our better sense of self, and be better at love? I'm going to read a few more comments. Roxanne, if you still want to talk, in addition to reading your comment, we'll be love to hear you. Oh. Hearing and seeing the land said like this gave me chills this week. Yeah, thank you, Roxanne. Please share.
That's my point. Hearing it and seeing it in the mezuzah, in the words of the mezuzah, in the context of what's going on in Israel is pretty powerful.
What is it bringing up for you?
It made me realize or forgive the ultra-Orthodox a little bit for their stubbornness and their persistence and their selfishness. I don't forgive it, but I understand it a little better.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thanks, Roxanne. Yeah, the land, home, the sense of well-being. Just going to look at a couple more comments here from Dara. It's not new, but when we repeat love, it's an invitation, remind to love. That resonates. Yeah. Is it obligation, tradition, religion, or expectation that we announce we are here, secure? We have some sort of home where we can show everyone who we say we are. And she loves the tune. Comforting. Yeah, we know by heart. And this is climate change. I agree. This is a deep sense of the divine and where we betray divinity. Sylvia Burstein, our beloved Juvu teacher, she always stops at her mezuzah walking to her home to remind herself to come in with love for everyone there, to stop leaving her home to bring love to everyone. Oh, thank you so much, Latifa, for bringing us Sylvia Burstein's beautiful wisdom. Yeah, from Christy, I'm a little appalled at how easily we forget what's on the scroll, even when we look at it. Somehow safety, love, our relationship we make with God, not just something we passively receive, it's on us. And finally, Laurel, nice to see you, my dear. Makes me feel that I have the power to make change. It's not by chance or coincidence, it's in our hands, all of us. The covenant between Hashem, God, the divine, people, and the land. Land meaning not necessarily the land of Israel. It is your home. It is our earth. It is our heritage. It's our body. In very much sense is the land. So friends, I want to pause us now. It's 7 o'clock. We've been here for an hour. And there are many more interesting pieces of history of how from this biblical text and the blood on the doors, we got those objects on your doorways with their exquisite and weird specifications. I'm going to share the document again, and then we're going to take some time in groups of 5 to just say hello, share what's on your heart perhaps, and choose a text or 2 that you might want to read together. So we got to here to what's in the mezuzah. Source 5 is a weird little Talmudic story about the meaning of the mezuzah. I'm sure your Aramaic is spotless, but here's the English translation. Source 6 is also sort of a legal, mythic story about protection. You might want to look at that as well. Those are options, obviously. It gets a little more legalistic if you're that kind of, I know I see a bunch of lawyers on the Zoom tonight. If you're like more left-brainy, which I'm not, these are some of the specifications of how we got to where we got with the legal specificities of the mezuzah. And number 8 is missing here. I apologize, but this next paragraph in Hebrew and in English is from Maimonides, and it's about some of the mystical aspects of the mezuzah. We're going to look at that text together later, because this is one of the first texts that looks at this as an amulet, actually, both for better or for worse. And this image goes with that source. Take a look at those if you'd like. Then it's now 7 p.m. I want to invite us to go into small groups of, Taylor, I think 4 or 5 people, however works, for about 20 minutes. And what I invite you to do is you're likely going to meet some people you haven't met. You're going to get a little invitation to join a breakout room. Please take it if you'd like. Say hello, introduce yourself. Who are you? Where you're coming from? What's on your heart tonight? What is this bringing up for you? Briefly. And then somehow I invite each group to figure out 1 or 2 texts that you want to focus on. Just read it together out loud. See where it takes you. What matters is what you make of it. You might not all agree on which text to read, and you might not have time for more than one. That's okay. We'll review them together. The texts are yours to look at later as well. The important thing is that we meet each other, and our thresholds of each other's lives are entered with love. And then we'll come back. We'll hear some of your learnings and look at a few more texts and understand what does this amulet tradition have to teach us tonight, so we can sleep better, wake up better, be better every day of our lives. Okay? So, Taylor, I invite you to do the magic and invite people into their own threshold. Give a little mezuzah kiss as you enter your breakout room. And we'll be here in 20 minutes to continue our journey. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Amichai, I'm going to go help with homework. Thank you for a beautiful teaching.
Thank you, beautiful. Thank you for all your help.
Of course. I'll speak.
רק הרעם אי שם עוד גורר רעים
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing the song again, Taylor.
Do what you need to do right now.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's come back to our screen. Hi, folks. Thank you for coming back. And I'm excited to hear from you some of what you may have discovered in your conversations. And the song, as Taylor put in the chat, is by Yossi Banai, an Israeli icon. And it says, your night gets to be soothed. This is how you soothe your night. This is a good night for soothing. So I want to take 7.5. I want to take like 10 minutes, maybe most, to hear from you. What did you discover when you chatted with each other about your personal takes, mezuzah, any of the texts? Was anything revealed? Any new insights? Did the hearts whisper any worthy secrets that we can share with the rest of the group? We would love to hear from you. Feel free to raise your hand or share in the chat. I see some articles are being shared. That article in the New Yorker, good article. Yeah, the floor is open. What did you learn in your chat? What's new? What do you want to share with us? Questions are welcome too, of course. Oh, Rabbi, nice to see you here joining us on the West Coast. Thank you. Yes. Rabbi Booth Nadav, where'd you go? Please unmute and share with us.
A couple of people have their hands up.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you, Philip.
Yeah.
Rabbi Steve, you there? Yeah, there you are.
Yeah. West Coast to you, but I'm still in the flyover zone of Denver.
Gotcha.
But most of our time we just spent talking about what we're doing and what it's like to be in this space at this time. And I just noticed that, and I don't know the other two people that were in my group, but I noticed that sense of shared heart connection, even with a stranger right now, brings a sense of peace and a sense of comfort, a sense of sanity. And then finally, like with a minute or so to go, we looked at the first text, and which talked a little bit about the protection offered by the mezuzah, and it just reminded me that there's this old, in rabbi school they talked about the apotropaic, I think was the word, if I got the word right, that it protects you. It's this magical thing that can protect you, and I don't buy that, but there is, a power there, and I don't know if it's a power I give it, if it's a power that I have to nurture, if it does. I feel like it does have some sort of protection, but it seems to also be connected to something I have to do.
Yeah.
And so I would love to reconstruct the idea of protection and go deeper with it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you. I understand where you're coming from. In our rabbinic training, the mystical was not top on the list. Objects that have powerful protection powers, but worth exploring. Eliana, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Hi there. Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
See you and hear you. Good.
So one of the members of the group I believe it was Andrea. She was saying her husband has, Japanese ancestry, and she was talking about something that she knows that they also have on their homes. So I was wondering if you had any insight on other ancient cultures, if this has ever come up in anything that you ever studied, that, maybe this was something that, well, it seems unique to us here thousands of years later, but was it something that was kind of normal at the time, maybe in certain Middle Eastern or, Far East or Asian cultures? And I think you mentioned something about, can't remember what you'd said earlier. But, I think just because, one thing we forget is that Jews at one time, though brief, lived, in, were welcomed and lived in, many parts. So is this something that could have been picked up from somewhere else? I'm just kind of curious if there's any insight to that.
Yeah, thanks, Eliana. That's a great question. So for sure, we know that there are traditions in Africa, for instance, and in some Muslim countries today, you still see it, and that is the very familiar Hamsa, or the hand of Fatima, the hand on the door. And in some ancient cultures, we know that the hand was usually dipped in the blood of a sacrificial animal when a new home was consecrated, and then you dip your hand in the blood of the animal consecrated, sacrificed for the honor, and then you put it on the door, and it's a stop sign for the demons, right? You are not welcome here. Demons, go away. Everybody else, come on down. So we know that exists. We know that there's many types of welcome mats in different configurations in different cultures, and some of them include amulets, and some of them include inscriptions on thresholds. We knew there was the case in Egypt. There's some case of that in the temples in Greece. So a sacred threshold, the liminal, is something familiar to different cultures. So that is perhaps where our ancestors were inspired by this thing. And I'm not an expert on what are some of the different formulations that are still around today. Sounds like a worthy research. Thank you. I'm seeing that there's some really great comments in the chat. And I wonder if anyone else wants to raise their hand and share a comment, a thought, a reflection before we go look into a couple of these texts. While you all consider that, I'll read Philip's note. There's safety in numbers, having a lot of people in the houses. Jews put that was like a sense of support, consolidation. And blue painted doorways and Kushur, Greek culture, very much the blue and some Mediterranean. And for Jill, who like me is a bookie, enjoy Maimonides and the mezuzah. Okay, so we're going to look at that in just a moment. And the gentleman who makes mezuzahs, I believe, is our beloved Rabbi David Klein, who is a Renaissance rabbi. So let's, there's no more hands up. Let's go look at the texts. I want to look at a few things with you and then have a few more moments to comment. And at the end, we're going to do a little grounding meditation just to really bring the mezuzah into our hearts and into this night. I'm sure it will do us all good. So here's our text. Story about the king who sends the rabbi a pearl and says, give me something of the equivalent. He sends him this weird little piece of text. The king is like, the hell is that? And he says, like, you don't get it. This is what protects you. And so this is obviously a Talmudic story with our side being the important one here. But the notion that it's not about the expensive, not about the monetary. There's, as we heard, there's power to this object in some way. Here's another story that says, I'm just going to read this bit here. Rabbi Hanina says, come and see that the attributes of flesh and blood is not like the one of the Holy One. A king sits inside a palace and there's protection from the outside, guards and so forth. But the divine, no. The people, us, we sit inside the home, and God, our King, sovereign, protects us from the outside. So, last Friday, my God, seems like a year ago. This past Friday, there was a lot of fear, and a lot of synagogues all over the country took extra measures for security. And we had security guards outside our doors, just in case. And thank goodness I'm not aware of any violence or any attacks on any houses of worship. I am aware of a despicable attack on a Muslim family in Chicago. But the synagogues, such as ours, with the protection outside, those extra bodyguards, security officers, that's God right there, guarding you from the outside. And that's the mezuzah. Like you have the sense of the divine right on your door, protecting you. I'm going to skip this next piece, which is also the Maimonides, and I'm going to go to the second paragraph, which is where we get into the mystical. Okay? Maimonides is writing in the 12th century, 11th, 12th century in Egypt. He is a physician, he's a scientist, he's a philosopher, he's a rabbi. He never sleeps because the amount of stuff he's written and produced makes all of us feel like losers. And he made very important contributions to consolidating many of the traditions that came prior into this corpus of law that would be replaced on some level by the 16th century with the next canonization of the law. But he's also, even though he was a mystic and a philosopher, he's not into a lot of this spiritual, mystical stuff, let's say. Here's where you see his response. It is a universal custom to write the word Shaddai, one of the names of God, potentially an ancient feminine name of God, on the other side of the mezuzah, opposite the blank space between the two sections. See where we are? So this is not exactly that, but this is the first section, second section, and Shaddai comes right sort of right here in the middle. All notice this line over here that's upside down. This is a secret code. We'll come back to that. Come back to that in a moment. It's kuzu, the muksaz kuzu. Secret Hebrew spell, hidden in plain view. But we'll get to that first. Excuse me. It is a universal custom to write the word Shaddai on the other side of the mezuzah scroll, opposite the blank space between the two sections. As this word is written on the outside, they, however, who write the names of angels, holy names, biblical text practice is, what's going on here? I'm sorry, there's a bit of a typo here. They who write names of angels, holy names, on inscriptions, usually on seals, are among those who have no portion in the world to come. For these fools not only fail to fulfill the commandments, but they treat an important precept that expresses the unity of God, the love of God, the worship of God, as if it were an amulet to promote their own personal interests. For according to their foolish minds, the mezuzah is something that will secure for them advantages in the vanities of the world. When Maimonides wants to, he's got a big mouth and very harsh words. What is he talking about? Look at this. This is a mezuzah from the Cairo Geniza. It's roughly from the 9th or maybe 8th century CE. So this is the text. See over here, the text we saw above. This is the Torah text, exactly as it is written by a scribe. But look what's happening here. These extra stars of David. That, by the way, at this point, the Star of David is not the Jewish symbol. We're going to get to that in our 5th session of Heirlooms. When did the Star of David become a thing? At this point, it's a mystical symbol. See all these little things here on the left? These are the names of angels. There's Gabriel, Azriel, Tzadkiel, Sharafiel, Raphael, Anael. This is a fragment of the mezuzah that did not just include the Torah text that we read, but actually a lot of name of protective angels. And according to research, that was very often the case until some point in the Middle Ages, and Maimonides had a lot to do with it by saying, don't do that. In other words, people did use this as an amulet. We have a lot of protective names of different deities, angels, mystical forces that is still very popular today. Right? So Maimonides is saying, no, friends, none of that. This is not about protection as an amulet. It's the text that matters. The basic text from the Torah that reminds you to love. I'm agnostic on this issue. I understand the Jewish law. I understand what Maimonides is saying. I'm also not a halachist and a legalist in this very peculiar, particular way these days. But I'm interested in this dialogue between what goes in the Yom HaZuzah. Is it just the text we inherited, or can you personalize it in a way that's meaningful to you? Right? Whoever created this may have actually thought that these angel names is what gives them the sense of safety and security. They are adding to the original, but honestly, the Torah doesn't give you a very specific recipe, right? It says, write these words. We assume tradition has made it so that these are these words of the Torah, but what if you add a poem? What if you add your grandmother's name? What if you add the blessing of everybody who was at your home dedication, and everybody puts a little word in there? I don't know. But that takes us to the story of, is this law? Is this legend? Where do we go into the folklore and the mythology of what this mezuzah is all about? For instance, where do you put it? What do you do with it? Remember how I said that 16th century a new Jewish legal code became popular? Maimonides is in Egypt in the 12th century. He's representing Egyptian Jewry, which was quite vast at the time. Doesn't mean that represents all the Jewish voices. There were different Jews who did the things differently. So by the 16th century, with the gift of printing, remember that thing? When that became a big deal? The very first Jewish book to become a bestseller, other than the Bible, when printing comes around, is this book over here called Shulchan Aruch, the Set Table, which is the book of Jewish law, written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, a rabbi who was from Turkey, ended up in what is now Israel, and wrote this mega opus of Jewish life, from morning to night, from crib to coffin, how to live your life as a Jew. He's a Sephardic Jew. So there was another amendment to his work by an Ashkenazi Jew. It's a little different where we are. Egypt is in Poland. We do things with a bit of a twist. Your chicken soup, my chicken soup, not the same chicken soup. So here's where we are in the Shulchan Aruch. So now we're looking at a 16th century thought about mezuzah. The mezuzah's placement is in the outer part of the door frame. This is Rabbi Yosef Karo. That is the basic text. Netinata b'tefek hachitzon, right? It could have been anywhere. Could have been on the doormat. Could have been on the top. Could have been in the middle of the door. No, somehow we have it that it becomes on this on the right side, page left, of your doorway. That's Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Sephardic teaching. Rama, Rabbi Moshe Isterlish, is living in Krakow, and he has a bit of a different view on things. And he writes footnotes, commenting on the Shulchan Aruch, and he says, there are those who say that when a person leaves one's house, one puts one's hand on the mezuzah. There it says, Adonai Shmo Tzeti Uvoi, quoting the Psalms. And so too, when one enters a house, one puts hands on the mezuzah. It doesn't say kiss. It just says put the hand on it. So that's interesting. This is the first time we have this in writing. Obviously, he's echoing a tradition that was already familiar. You don't just see it, you hold it. And later on, another tradition would evolve that you kiss it. Put the hand on the door and you kiss it. I did that as a kid. I don't anymore, except for special occasions like entering my mother's house today. And my oldest daughter, Alice, who's now 17, at a key moment in her young life, became very OCD about it and would kiss every mezuzah all the time. We're like, Alice, stop. But give her comfort. So it's interesting that the mezuzah becomes somatic. You put your hand on it, you kiss it, you interact with the threshold in the sense that embodies the sense of protection in some way, even if you don't know what the words are, if the words don't matter. So we're seeing some of the evolution from an abstract idea into text on the door, into some kind of something that you hold on to with your hand, and maybe even kiss. Some of you might do it. Some of you may think that's very weird, but this is some of what we're talking about in the evolution of this object. I'm gonna look at the chat in a moment. So I want to find ourselves into beginning to close. We're looking at one more really interesting text about why is the mezuzah on a slant, right? Have you ever noticed that? And vertical and horizontal, it's on an angle. There's some pretty interesting stories about why that is the case. And I think as the world is going through so much division right now and so many conflicts and wars, there's an important reminder here. And this comes from a beautiful text by Rabbi Leah Dobner Shor, who's a contemporary of ours. Let me read it together with you all. Traditionally, a Jewish home is not complete without a mezuzah on its doorpost. You may have noticed that a mezuzah is often hanging neither vertically or horizontally, but rather is tilted at an angle. The origin of this custom can teach us about an important Jewish value, shalom bayit, peace in the home. The custom to hang the mezuzah at an angle began as a result of almost 1,000-year-old disagreement. The great Torah scholar Rashi, in the 11th, almost 12th century, ruled that the mezuzah should be hung vertically. He did this because in Sephardic communities, such as the ones he lived in the north of France, the Torah is held in a vertical position when it is read. On the other hand, Rashi's grandsons lived in what became increasingly the Ashkenazic, the European milieu. That was the custom that took over, where the Torah is read horizontally, as many of us do in our synagogues. The Torah isn't held up, it's laying down. These grandsons ruled that the mezuzah should also be hung horizontally. In the spirit of the compromise, the custom became to hang it at an angle. Let's make everybody happy. Let's compromise. That's shalom bayit. Let's find peace. You're not going to get your way. You're not going to get your way. I'll meet you in the middle at an angle. Put another way, at the very moment when we enter our homes, we are reminded of the importance of finding a way to live in peace with one another. The point isn't that we'll always see eye to eye with the folks we live with. Rather, it's that we commit to working through our disagreements with one another. The very first word on the mezuzah scroll is Shema, or listen. We make a commitment to listen to each other and to find a way to live in peace with each other. Shalom bayit, like so many of our values, is not to be attained all at once. Rather, we make a commitment to work with our loved ones towards this goal each day, with its blessings, each day, with its challenges. Each day, when we return to our homes, we see our mezuzah, a reminder of peace and compromise, a reminder of the type of home, type of world we would like to create before we ever cross the threshold. Not a powerful teaching, right there. Not just love, but compromise. Find the angle where our truths meet in the corner. And so I want to take you back to the little secret that is hidden here in the mezuzah. Remember how Maimonides said, no demons, no magic spells. This is not voodoo. This is just about the intellectual idea of God guiding your door, guarding your home. Even Maimonides could not fight the ambition, the desire for mystery. And so two things remain on the mezuzah that defy the Torah or the basic law. One is this word Shaddai. Shaddai in Hebrew means my breasts, as in the women's breasts. It could also be Sadai, or Shaddai as in the fields. And according to some interesting scholars, Shaddai may have been an ancient Semitic name of the divine, who is the mother, whose breasts feed and nourish, whose fields nourish. Remember the words in the text here? The rain, the land, the fertility, the abundance. So in some way, Shaddai is the goddess, the mother care, who holds you in and protects you. It became an acronym, Shin Daled Yud, Shomer Daltot Israel, the keeper of the doors of Israel. And this Shin, the first letter of the word Shaddai, is what you often see on the mezuzah. Right? So it's just one letter. Shh. Secret, mystery. This is the ancient goddess. This is your mother and grandmother. That beautiful story we heard earlier tonight of entering your grandmother's doorway and being raised up to kiss the mezuzah and then give a hug from grandma. Bingo. That's what the Shh of Shaddai means. You are held by the love of the ancestors. That's that Shin on the mezuzah. But then what's this up here? What's this kuzu b'muchsas kuzu? It's upside down. So there is a secret. There are secret codes in Judaism of how to scramble letters. Kuzu b'muchsas kuzu is another way of saying Adonai Eloheinu Adonai. God is our God. But instead of writing it in the actual letters, you move each letter one to the side. So you're going to use a secret code. And there's interesting research about why this way of using a secret name of God in here was to keep some of this mystical layers. Not everything is visible. Not everything is visible to the eye. But this is an amulet. This is an object that is about protection. This is an object that identifies your home as Jewish, even if that's risky. And this is a welcome mat to make sure that when you walk in and you walk out, you remember what it means to be part of something bigger, which is mysterious and layered and holds you like your grandma's hug, even on terrible nights. So that, my friend, is the secret of the threshold amulet that we call the mezuzah. I like making them by taking an actual parchment and then finding the container for the right home of whoever it is getting it, decorating it, maybe adding other blessings on the side. I just made one for my friend Sandy and Eric as they move into their new home in Brooklyn. It's a piece of art. I know that Melanie was here with us before. Yes, Melanie is still here. But Melanie lost her beautiful partner, Leah Lynn, just about a year ago. And Leah Lynn was a wonderful artist and left me a beautiful piece of wool that she spun and wove together. And it was on my altar for a little bit. And then I made that into part of the mezuzah that Sandy and Eric now have hanging, or will have when we hang it up on their door, because they loved her too. So there's ways of personalizing the mezuzah as an art object, as an icon, as a gift to you and to anybody who walks in and out of your home. I'm hoping that this was a helpful sanctuary in the middle of so much turmoil. In a moment, I'm going to open it up for just one word that you want to take away from this into your night. We're going to take some time to quietly sit and kiss the mezuzah together before we say Laila Tov, good night. And we'll pray together for healing and for hope, for peace, and for the cessation of violence, for shalom bayit, for peace in the home, peace in the homeland, peace in our homes, peace in all lands. And those of us and those among us who are homeless tonight because of conditions they did not create. May they find a way to have a home. May their threshold be blessed with protection. May we do what we can to welcome others into our home with generosity and kindness. May we create shalom bayit, peace inside the home, which is the world, on this and every day. Even with so many complicated factions claim our loyalties and our fears, our tribal truths and our universal longings. May we be part of a bigger home of peace. Let's take a moment to just sit here quietly. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the mezuzah, which is your heart, where love is present, beating. Let's just observe our breath in and out. It's like we're walking in and out of our home. So think, feel, as Taylor put in the chat, one word that you want to put on the mezuzah tonight as we wrap up. We all came up with words at the beginning to honor the threshold. Let's do honor the threshold as we leave. I see the word history. I see a lot of thank yous and appreciations, blessings, connection. Welcome the stranger with compassion, love, and support. Oh, great. It's a beautiful love. Thank you, Dina, for a lovely lesson from our friends at PJ Library. Community, hope, safety, sacred protection. Echad means one, the Shema. Gratitude and friendship, comfort and community, healing, compromise and peace in the home, protection, home, gratitude, help, listen, shalom bayis, wisdom. Mezuzah is our heart, generosity, protection from the ancestors, more gratitude and holding, listening, compromising. Thank you, friends, for this beautiful, beautiful session together. Housekeeping, homekeeping, mezuzah keeping. We'll be here again next Monday, same time. I'll still be in Israel. And we're going to look at the table. The table, the one at which you sit, the one at which you feast. Why is the table such a big deal in Jewish tradition? And what are some of the secrets of the table you may never have thought about? We're going to go to our pre-scheduled Heirloom series. There's 6 more sessions. If you enjoyed this and you want to join us next Monday, and if not yet registered, please do. If money is an issue, be in touch with us. It shouldn't be an issue. We appreciate your support for our time and production. And we're going to meet again on Wednesday evening at, I think, 6 or 7 p.m. It's on our website for just a Zoom to address what's happening in Israel and Gaza, to pray together, to listen to each other. And there will be more opportunities to come together as a community and hold each other through this terrible, difficult moment. Please check on our website, the special webpage with all the updates, ways to help, donate, support. It is so important. And I keep putting things on my social media, so check those out as well. May this night bring blessing and healing. Thank you for joining me tonight. Really, really, really helpful and meaningful to me. See, if I go to sleep now, it's 4 in the morning, and just stay up. Go in peace. Shalom. Taylor, thank you for rocking it. Taylor just joined us tonight. Completely aced this. Please share feedback via email, thoughts, comments, suggestions. Philip El Al did not have a mezuzah on the door. I asked and I got an eye roll. So maybe it's a campaign. Thank you for asking. Good day. With a laugh. Good night. Laila Tov.